gone by. Yes, the sun has come up over 1,000 times. Some babies that weren't even born yet have already begun speaking regular sentences. And some people who thought they were young, it's probably even noticed they can't bout up the flight of stairs they used to. Yes, all that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing contriving in other ways as well. A number of young people fell in love and got married. Most everybody in the world gets married, you know what I mean? In our town, there aren't hardly any exceptions. Most everybody in the world comes in their graves married. This act is called Daily Life in Love and Marriage. There's another act coming after this. I reckon you guess what that's about. So, another day's begun. It's July 7th, just after high school commencement. That's the time most of our young people jump up and get married. Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Webb come downstairs to make breakfast just as though it was an ordinary day. I don't have to point out to the women in the audience that those ladies you see before them, both of those ladies cook 3 meals a day. One for 20 years, the other for 40, and no summer vacation. They both washed, cleaned the house, brought up their families, and never a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, Bessie.
Here comes Howie Newsome over the milk, and Mrs. Warren. Come down, matron.
Morning, Belle.
Morning, Howie.
You know, I heard everyone's worked up about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir. That's the way it goes. Back in '84, we had a player. Even George Gibbs couldn't touch him, named Hay Todd. Went down to Maine to become a parson. Wonderful ball player. How does the weather look to you?
Oh, ain't bad. Think maybe it'll clear up.
Good morning, Howie. Do you think it's going to rain again?
Morning, Mrs. Webb. It rained so heavy, I think maybe it'll clear up.
Sounds good.
How much did you want today?
I'm going to have a house full of relations. Looks to me I need 3 of milk and 2 of cream.
My wife wants me to tell you, we both hope they'll be very happy, Mrs. Webb. No, they will.
Thanks a lot, Howie. Tell your wife I hope she gets there to the wedding.
She'll be there. She'll be there if she can. Morning, Mrs. Webb.
Morning, Mr. Newsome.
How much did you want today?
Now, I know I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I'm hoping you can spare me another.
Yes, and 2 of cream.
Is it going to rain again, Mr. Newsome?
Well, explaining to Mrs. Gibbs how it may lighten up. My wife wants me to tell you, we both hope they'll be very happy, Mrs. Webb. No, they will.
Thank you, Mr. Newsome, and thank you, Mrs. Newsome as well. Now I'm hoping I'm kind of seeing both of you at the wedding.
Yes, we'll be there. You can miss it. Come on, Bessie.
Day is coming. Losing one of your chicks.
Now, don't you start that, Frank Gibbs. I feel like crying every minute. Sit down and drink a coffee.
Our groom's up shaving himself, homie. There ain't a whole lot to shave. Whistling and singing like he's glad to leave us. Every now and then he says I didn't weird, but it don't sound convincing to me.
I declare, I don't know how they'll get along. Of wash and iron, I see that he's put warm things on. Emily won't think of such things. He'll catch a double cold within a week.
I was remembering our wedding morning, Julia.
Hold on, you start that.
I was the scariest young fellow in the whole state of New Hampshire. Thought I'd make a mistake for sure. When I saw you from there, I thought you were the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. Trouble was, never seen you before. There I was standing in a congregational church, marrying a total stranger.
And how do you think I felt? Frank, weddings are perfectly awful things, farces. That's what they are. Here, I made you something.
Why? Julia Harrison, French toast.
Well, it ain't hard to make, and I had to do something.
How'd you sleep last night, Julia?
I had a few of the hours struck off.
Yes, I get a shock every time I think of how George setting out to be a family man, that great gangling thing. You know, there's nothing so terrifying in this world as a son. The relation of father and son is one of the darndest, awkwardest.
And mother and daughter to no picnic, let me tell you.
They'll have their troubles, I suppose. But everybody has a right to their own troubles.
Yes, people are meant to go through life 2 by 2. Ain't natural to be lonesome.
You want to know one of the things I was scared of the most when I married you, Julia?
Oh, go along with you.
I was scared we wouldn't have material for conversation more or less this a few weeks. I was scared we'd go out and get our meals in silence. That's a fact. Well, you and I have been conversing for 20-some years now without any noticeable phone spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather. Ain't very choice, but I always find something to say. Did you hear Rebecca stirring around upstairs?
No. Only day of the year she hasn't been managing everybody's business up there. She's hiding in her room. I'm under the impression she's crying.
Lord's sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca, come down and get your breakfast.
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours left to live.
George Gibbs, where are you going?
Just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
It's raining torrents outside. You put in your overshoes. You're not going to go out of this house without you being prepared for it.
Mom, it's just a step.
George, you catch a death and call all through service.
George, do as your mother tells you.
Yes, Mom.
While you're in my house, you live wisely, thank you. Maybe Mrs. Webb isn't used to call us at 7 in the morning.
Be back in a minute. Morning, Webb.
Goodness, George, you frightened me. Now you come in out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you in.
Why not?
George, you know as well as I do that the groom can't see his bride on the day of their wedding, not until he sees her in church.
That's just a superstition. Morning, Mr. Webb.
Good morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that superstition, do you?
Well, there's a lot of common sense in some superstitions, George.
Millions have followed it, and you don't want to be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How's Emily?
I don't know, I haven't seen her yet.
Emily's asleep?
No wonder, we're all one night stowing and packing. Now I'll tell you what I do. You sit down here a minute with Mr. Webb and drink your coffee, and I'll go upstairs and see that she doesn't come down and surprise you. There's some baking to do, but don't be long about it.
So, George, how are you?
Mr. Webb, what sense could there be in a superstition like that?
Well, a girl's head's apt to be full of clothes and shoes, or one thing or another. Don't you think that's probably it?
Yeah, I guess I never thought of that.
Girls have to be right nervous on her wedding morning.
You know, I wish a fella could be married with all this marching up and down.
Every man that's ever lived his life has thought the exact same way about it. You see, it's the women who built up weddings. The way they stand shoulder to shoulder, tying the noose in a mighty public way.
But believe in it, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Oh, yes. Don't misunderstand me. Marriage is a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. And don't you forget that, George.
How old were you when you got married, Mr. Webb?
Well, I'd been away to college first, and I'd taken a little time to settle down. Mrs. Webb, she wasn't much older than what Emily is now. You see, age doesn't really have anything to do with marriage. Not like other things.
What were you going to say, Mr.
I
Webb?
don't know. Was I going to say something? You know, the other night, I remembered some advice my father gave me before I got married. Charles, he said, Charles, after you get married, give an order, even if it doesn't make sense. That way your wife will know her place in the household. And if she does something to annoy you, leave. Get up and leave the house. That way she'll get the message right and clear. And never, ever tell her how much money you make. Nope.
Mr. Webb, really?
So I took the opposite of my father's advice, and I've been happy ever since. And let that be a lesson to you, George. Never ask advice on personal matters. Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Excuse me?
Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Well, Uncle Luke's never doing
Look, you came into my office the other day about the viral system of raising chickens. I want you to read it. See, I've been thinking about beginning in a small way in my basement. I was thinking about putting an incubator in the cellar.
Charles, are you talking about that old incubator again? I thought you two be talking about something worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want me to leave, I could just leave you down here with them.
Now, George, I'm sorry, but Emily has to come down and eat her breakfast, and she does not want to lay eyes on you. Goodbye.
Bye.
I guess you don't know that older superstition, do you, Myrtle?
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the dawn of caveman, no groom should see his father-in-law near or on the day of the wedding. Now remember that.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. You see, we want to know how all this began. This wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how big things like that begin. You know how it is. You're 21, 22. You make some decisions and whoosh, you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years. And that white-haired lady at your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things like that begin? George and Emily are going to show you the conversation they had when they first knew that, as the saying goes, they were meant for one another. But before they do that, I want you to try to remember what it's like to have been very young, and particularly the days when you were first in love. You were like a person sleepwalking. Didn't quite hear everything that was said to you, and didn't quite see everything in front of you. You were just a little bit crazy. You remember that, please? Now, they'll be coming to high school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the junior class, And as it's June, it means you'll be president all next year of the senior class as well. And Emily, you've just been a secretary and treasurer. I don't have to tell you how important that is. Yep, there they are coming down Main Street now.
I can't, Louise. I have to go home and help my mother. Goodbye. Oh, Ercie. Ercie, can you come over tonight and do Latin? Isn't that sister the worst thing? I'll tell her you have to. Goodbye. Goodbye, Helen. Goodbye, Fred.
Emily, can I walk you home?
Why, thank you. It isn't far.
Excuse me. Say, Bob, if I'm late for practice, start without me. And make sure to throw Herb some long highways.
Goodbye, Lizzie.
Goodbye, Lizzie. I'm awfully glad you were elected, Emily.
Why, thank you.
Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me so funny lately.
Well, George, since you asked, I might as well go right out and say it. Lately, I think that... goodbye, Miss Cochran.
Bye, Miss Cochran. What is it?
Well, I don't like the whole change that's come over you in the past year, George. Now, I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I have to tell the truth and shame the devil.
A change? What do you mean?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot. And I used to watch you as you did everything, because we'd been friends so long. And then you started spending all your time at baseball, and you never stopped to speak to anyone. Not even your own family you didn't. And George, it's a fact. You've become awful stuck up and conceited lately. All the girls say so. They may not say it to your face, but that's what they're saying about you behind your back. And it hurts me to hear them say it, but I have to agree with them just a little. Now, I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I can't be sorry that I said it.
No, I'm glad you said it, Emily. I just never thought that such a thing could be happening to me. I guess it's hard for a fella not to have faults creep into his character.
Well, I expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
Well, I don't think it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
Well, my father's perfect, and as far as I can see, your father's perfect. I don't see why you shouldn't be perfect, too.
Well, I feel it's the other way around, that men aren't naturally perfect, but women are.
Well, I'll just let you know right now that I am not perfect. It's much harder for girls to be as perfect as men. Us girls are more say, nervous. Now, I'm sorry I said all that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily,
Suddenly, I can see that it's not the truth at all. That it doesn't matter anyways.
Emily, do you want to get an ice cream soda or something before you go home?
Why, thank you. I will.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What do you have? Why, Emily Webb, what have you been crying about?
She just got an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. Almost got hit by that hardware store wagon. Everybody says that Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
Well, no, Emily, you take a drink of water. Look all shook up. God, look both ways across Main Street these days. Gets worse every year. What do you have?
I'll have a strawberry phosphate. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
No, Emily, have an ice cream soda with me. 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, please.
Yes, sir. Did you know there are 125 horses in Grover's Corners this minute I'm talking to you? The state inspector was in here yesterday. And now they're bringing these new automobiles. Best thing to do is just stay home. Like, I can remember when a dog could sleep all day in the middle of Main Street and nothing could come along to disturb him. There they are, enjoying them. Yes, Miss Alice, what can I do for you?
They're so expensive.
No, don't you think of that. We're celebrating our election. And you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
I'm celebrating that I have a friend who tells me all the things that Auntie told me.
George, please don't think of that. I really don't know
No,
why.
Emily, you stick to it. I'm glad you spoke to me the way you did, but you'll see. I'm gonna change. I'm gonna change so quick. And, Emily, can I ask you a favor?
What?
If I go off to State Agriculture College next year, would you write me a letter once in a while?
I certainly will, George. I certainly will. It certainly seems like being away for 3 years, you might get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't seem so interesting after a while. I mean, I do think Grover's Corners is a lovely town, but it's not a very important place when you think of all New Hampshire.
Emily, not a day would go by that I wouldn't want to know everything that's going on here.
Well, I'll try to make my letters interesting.
You know, whenever I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to State Agriculture College to be a good farmer. And sometimes they even say it's a waste of time, that you can learn all the information on the pamphlets that the government sends out. And Uncle Luke's getting old. He's about ready for me to come in and take over tomorrow if I could.
My?
Emily, I've made up my mind, and I'm not going to go. I'll tell Pa later tonight.
Why, George, I don't see why you have to decide now. It's almost a whole year away.
Emily, I think that when you find someone who cares about you, who cares about your character, well, I think that's more important than college anyways.
I do too, George.
Emily,
Yeah?
if I make a change, could you...
I am now, George, and I always have been.
So I guess this is an important talk we've been having.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Morgan, I'll be right back with money to pay you.
George Gibbs, do you mean to tell me?
Yes, but I had a valid reason. Here, keep my watch.
That's okay, George. Keep your watch. I'll trust you. Trust you 10 years, George. Not a day over. Probably shock, Emily.
Why, yes, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing at all.
Well, now we're ready to get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding. There are a lot of thoughts that go on during a wedding. In this wedding, I play the minister. That gives me the right to say a few more things about it. For a while now, this play gets pretty serious. The real hero of the scene isn't on stage at all. I reckon you guess who that is. It's like what one of those European fellows said. Every child born in the world is nature's attempt to make a perfect human being. Well, we've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now. We know that she's interested in quantity, but I think she's interested in quality as well. That's why I'm in the ministry. Well, that's all my sermon. Wasn't very long anyway.
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to be crying about. It came over me this morning at breakfast. There was Emily eating her breakfast like she's done for 17 years. And now she's going off to eat in someone else's house. And Emily, she suddenly said, I can't eat another mouthful. And she put her head down on the table and she cried. Oh, I don't know. I think it's downright cruel we send our young girls out into marriage this way. I would have told her a thing or two myself, but I went into it blind about myself. I hope her girlfriends have taught her a thing or two. The whole world's wrong, that's what's the matter. Here they come.
George, what's the matter?
Ma, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
George, you wanted it.
No, Ma, I don't. Listen to me.
George, you're a man now.
Ma, you're not hearing me.
George, if anyone should hear you, I'm ashamed of you.
What? Where's Emily?
You gave me such a turn.
Cheer up, Ma. I'm getting married.
Oh, let me catch my breath a minute.
They say Thursday nights, Ma. Emily and I are coming over for dinner every Thursday night.
I've never felt so alone in my whole life. And George over there, looking so. I hate him. I wish I were dead. Papa, Papa.
No, Emily, don't get upset.
But Papa, I don't want to get married.
No, Emily, you're just not thinking straight.
Papa, don't you remember all the time you used to say, all the time that I was your girl? There has to be somewhere we can go. I can keep your house for you.
Emily, please. George, would you come over here for a moment? You're marrying the best young fellow in the world.
Papa, please. If you love me, you'll help me. All I need is someone to love me.
I will.
Forever, do you hear me? Forever and ever.
I promise.
All right, it's time to start. Come on. Now you know we'll be all right.
To you, George, to this woman, Emily, to be your wedding wife.
Perfectly lovely wedding, oh loveliest wedding I ever saw. I do love a good wedding, don't you? Doesn't she make a lovely bride?
Emily, to this man, George, to be your wedding husband.
Don't know when I've been to such a nice wedding, but I always cry. Don't know why, but I always cry. I guess I just love seeing young people happy, don't you? Oh, I think it's lovely.
I do.
married over 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. M marries N, millions of them. Once in 1,000 times, it's interesting. Well, let's have Meadow and Sons wedding march.
Aren't they a lovely couple? Oh, I always say, they're gonna be happy. I'm telling you right now, happiest couple ever.
First that course.